92.7, 92.7, 92.7,
92.7 VHS FM.
Captain Adam's Happy Hour.
On 92.7 WVHS FM. WVHS FM.
Captain Adam's Happy Hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are on WVHS FM 92.7 and you are listening to Captain Adam's Happy Hour. I am Captain Adam. Welcome to the show. And it's a very special show indeed, because today we're going to be recapping what went down at the Captain Adam's VHS pirate ship VHS Expo 2023. If you're a fan of the channel and follow me on Facebook and Instagram, then you know this was most certainly a thing this past Sunday. Sunday, April 23rd, depends on when you're listening to the show. So yeah, Sunday, April 23rd, it went down in Hagerstown, Maryland. I certainly did a lot of promotion for it. So I'm sure you're glad for me to be done talking about it, but not today. Today I'm going to be recapping everything that went down and what exactly happened at the VHS Expo 2023. Now, just in case you live in a cave or are from a different planet, or maybe you just don't follow this kind of stuff and you don't know what the VHS Expo was, it was a gathering of unique vendors and bands from the tri-state area, centered around Hagerstown, Maryland, which is about an hour and a half west of Baltimore, Maryland, to give you a little geographic placement on where that small little city is. It was a gathering of unique vendors and bands, just a mega event. There was VHS vendors, Laserdisc vendors, comic book vendors, vinyl record vendors, and even metaphysical stuff, if you're familiar with what that is. That is, like just magic items, really. Stuff to make your day and your life a little bit brighter. Maybe it makes sense to more of you than others, but, that's, I think it's some pretty groovy stuff. It was stones and bones, gems and jewelry, and all kinds of magic relics that you need in your life. So that was from Laloon Metaphysical Shop, right in Hagerstown, Maryland. Check them out. And again, I should say that all the vendors that participated in the expo, I'm going to have links to their stuff in the description so you can check them out for yourself. I'm fairly certain they all have an online presence, so if you're not near them, you can always drop them a line and see what's cooking. It was a gathering of just a bunch of unique stuff. It was like a cross between a Comic-Con, a VHS convention, a horror convention, a record convention with a live band. So it was a show as well. And, it was just, I thought it was a pretty awesome experience. If I can toot my own horn here, I thought it was a very interesting show because even if I wasn't doing it, I certainly would have come to it because it seemed like it appealed to a lot of different people. And as I noticed, there was people there for VHS, people were there for Laserdisc, people were there for records, people were there for comics, and some people were there just to come to check it out, and some people were there for the bands. So it was just a very pleasant mix of everything that's pretty awesome. I did bill it as the modern day antiques fair because that's kind of what it was. I mean, when you're dealing with like VHS and Laserdisc, and stuff of that sort of, ancient home media, they're most certainly antiques, whether or not we want to admit that, because that's pretty much shows that we're old, but, that stuff happens. So all in all, it was a collection of just really cool stuff because all the vendors had really awesome stuff. All the VHS that was brought out, I was very impressed by the VHS collectors, the VHS vendors, I should say. I was impressed by their wares of what kind of VHS they had. I mean, it was just really impressive, and the amount of VHS as well, because, I had 3 VHS vendors. There was myself, and then I had big shout out to Matt Burns for all of his help with this. He was slinging some tapes. He has a huge collection of X-Rental copies. Somehow he acquired a huge collection of X-Rentals, and he was slinging them back and forth. He had a lot of neat stuff there. And then another big shout out to Video Den, an immense collection from him. He was slinging tapes left and right, a lot of good stuff. And it was just nice to, let our tapes get out and play, sort of, because they just sort of, sit on our shelves. And they don't really do anything. So this was a way for people to see our collections and to buy what they wanted. And, our tapes had a nice chance to have a play date with each other. So it was a lot of fun. And another big shout out coming here to SURFIN Comics. This guy was just a really nice guy, had an impressive collection of wares, like the name implies. He had comic books, but he also had retro games and some trading cards and just a little bit of everything. And it was just really nice to have him there. I was glad he was a part of it. And he was also one of the bands. He was the opening act, Junk Punk. It's acoustic solo punk, folk rock, essentially. Some pretty good stuff. So check him out. His link will be in the description as well. So he played pretty much triple duty. He was not only the comic vendor, but also the retro game vendor. And he was also one of the music acts. So good job, buddy. Shane, I really appreciate you being there. Big shout out to Shane of SURFIN Comics. And again, the link, whatever information about the vendors will be in the description, so please check them out. So yeah, it was basically just a gathering of uniquely awesome vendors who had uniquely awesome stuff. And among those vendors, I had the vinyl record vendors. One of them was Crucial Blast. Good friend of mine, one of the coolest guys I know, and I'm happy to know him. He does a fantastic business. Speaking of unique, he's a very unique business because he deals with bands and artists and soundscapists and that you just don't hear anywhere else besides Crucial Blast. Now, it is worth checking out if you're into avant-garde music, if you're into any kind of metal, any kind of underground stuff, any kind of soundscape, anything like that. You got to check him out. And again, like all the other vendors, links to his stuff will be in the description. That's Crucial Blast Records. So definitely check him out. And my other record vendor was Admiral Analog's Audio Assortment. Big time vinyl dealer out of Shepherdstown, West Virginia. He has a brick and mortar store down there, but also an immense online presence. So if you're not in the area, you can always get a hold of him. If he doesn't have it, believe me, you don't need it. He can get a hold of just about anything. So, he was a very special addition to the VHS Expo. Was very happy to have him on board. And speaking of him, we're actually going to have him on the phone giving his take and his rundown of what happened at the VHS Expo 2023. So we're going to be hearing from him a little bit later. So we got to take a station break right now. So be sure to hang out, enjoy yourself, enjoy some music coming up right now. So stick around. We're going to talk about what happened at the VHS Expo 2023. All right, we'll be right back right here on Captain Adams Happy Hour. See you soon.
Captain Adams Happy Hour.
On 92.7 WVHS FM. WVHS FM.
You're living in a bubble and you haven't got a care. Well, you're gonna be in trouble, 'cause we're gonna steal your air. 'Cause what you got is what we need, and all
not drink and bake.
Captain Adam's Happy Hour.
92.7 WVHS FM. WVHS FM.
Captain Adam's Happy Hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are on WVHS FM 92.7, and you're listening to the Captain Adam's Happy Hour. I'm Captain Adam. Welcome back to the show, and a very special show it is indeed, because today I'm recapping what went down at the Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo 2023, the first ever event of such sort that at least I've done. So yes, the first ever Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo. I do plan on doing this every year, every spring, because, well, it was a huge success, surprisingly enough. Now, I say that because going into this thing, I wasn't entirely sure what the turnout would be if there are a lot of tape heads in this area, and it turns out there are an impressive amount. You just don't know because, I mean, really, how would you? People just don't go around talking about this stuff on, like, you know, on trains and in buses and at the supermarket. You sort of just find out someone's a VHS head when you have a VHS convention. So I was very surprised at the turnout and very happy for it too. Met a lot of cool people. Met a lot of really interesting fellow tape heads, and it was, you know, it was a good time. And I also saw a lot of old friends that just came out to support the events, and you know, they found a lot of cool stuff too. So it was just, you know, it was a good time. I'm very impressed on how it turned out. Pleasantly surprised. It gave me a good temperature of what the VHS culture was like, not just the VHS culture, but really the culture in general, as far as like anything regarding records, regarding comics, you know, regarding bands. Like it sort of just let me know of the silent majority that's out there, to where it's like there are a lot of people into this stuff, but there just isn't too many outlets for it. You know, especially in this area, and that leads me to my next point. Speaking of this area, the Hagerstown, Maryland area, it's not exactly what you would call very bohemian, meaning that there aren't a lot of venues for any kind of like music shows, or at least like underground music, you know, punk rock, metal, you know, whatever you got. You know, there really isn't too much to do. And that's usually the case in a lot of towns, the small towns, you know, to the caliber that Hagerstown, Maryland is. But there are people who are into that stuff that's out there that just don't have a way to really output their interest. So venues in this area always been sort of a problem There have been, a couple of venues here and there that do support like underground stuff and all this. Most notably, if you grew up in this area, then you know very well of the 180 Club right there in Hagerstown, Maryland. Of course, it closed up, I think, sometime in the late 90s. I might be wrong about that. If anybody knows exactly, let me know in the comments. Because I went to a couple shows there, but I mean that place was in existence long before I got into any kind of like underground music or shows or anything like that. So the 180 Club was a big part of Hagerstown's like music culture. But that went down. But other than that, there really hasn't been too many. But the one thing that was always a tried and true shining beacon to underground music shows was the Wilson Raritan Center, the venue in which the Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo 2023 was housed in. And that venue, they really don't know this, the people that ran the Wilson, they don't really know how important that venue was, and I say was, and I'll get to that here in a second, was to the underground music scene in this area because they've been allowing shows to be held there, at least 30 plus years. And that's where I started going to shows as a teenager. And, and from on there, I went to many other shows there and had a lot of shows there myself. And, it was always a constant flame burning in the night because there was always the Wilson Center. As long as you had the available dates and you kept all your P's and Q's together and didn't let your audience get out of hand, you were able to rent this place for fairly cheap to have your little events. And, some of these shows were pretty big, and it was a great place. And again, I say was, and I'll get to that here in a second. It's just a very unassuming rental hall, meaning that it is a hall that you could rent for any kind of event that you were holding, a family reunion, a wedding, a bachelor party, whatever. And it just so happened they'd also do stuff for like metal shows or hardcore shows, punk rock shows, or just any kind of music show. They would also allow rentals for that. And it was just a very, just a very nice building to have events in. And there were many events held there. Many music shows, many underground music shows were held there. It is a part of the culture, or at least was. And again, I'll get to that here in a second. It was part of the underground music culture in this area. Very important to a lot of us. I'm sure, if you're listening to this all over the world, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm sure every town in America has a Wilson Raritan Center, at least, it might not be called that, but it is what the Wilson Raritan Center was. And again, and I'm getting ready to get to it, I'll tell you why I'm talking about it in the past tense. So the Wilson Raritan Center was a very special place to underground music in this area. For many of us, it was the only outlet to go to a show and experience. For some of us, it was the first shows we've ever gone to. And, for some of us, it was the last shows we ever went to. So it was, it was just a nice place, a very unassuming building on the outskirts of Hagerstown in the country, ran by a Raritan Club who usually just does like, church lunches, sandwich sales, like indoor yard sales, family reunions. Like they would rent it out for stuff like that. But they would also rent it out to people who wanted to have, rock and roll shows, heavy metal shows, punk rock shows. So it was like a very contrasting thing, to where it's like you had these very innocent events like family reunions or whatever. Oh, excuse me. I'm getting very saliva-y right now, so excuse me. I'm starting to build up. But then you also had like these really like just awesome music shows to where you experienced new music, you saw new bands, you met new people. It was a catalyst to just like new things and stoking old interest or giving you new ones. It was the place to be. And I'm getting to it right now. I say was because, and what makes the Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo all that more special. Oh, excuse me. Oh, yeah, excuse me. Well, that's coming up. Anyways, what makes it all the more special was that the Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo 2023, was the last ever show that was to be held at the Wilson Raritan Center because sadly, it's closing down. They sold the building to Well, I'm not going to disclose that information, but they sold the building basically because the Maryland fire codes pretty much screwed them out of operation because they just expect way too much for the Ruritan Club. The Wilson Ruritan Club, like any other Ruritan club, is a nonprofit organization that helps the community in various ways. So it's nonprofit. So it's like they don't really make much on the rentals, which, by the way, the rentals are very cheap, or at least they were. And, whatever money they make goes right back into their organization. And so you have the fire codes in Maryland asking them, as well as any old building, to retrofit them with fire suppression systems that all in all are just far too expensive for a nonprofit organization to afford. So it's like they pretty much got screwed out of operation because they can't afford what these new fire permits or fire codes require of them. So that's why they're closing. So yes, the Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo 2023 was the last show to ever be held at the Wilson Ruritan Center. And when I found that out, I was very touched because not only did I get in just in time booking the venue, because I booked it back in January, I found out later that it's going to be the last show. I was like, wow, this is what a moving moment this is, because the Wilson has meant a lot to many of us. And if you're listening to this right now, you know exactly who you are. It meant more to us than we really realized. So now that it's closed, it's sort of like, wow, we. I don't know if I want to say we didn't realize what we had when we had it, because I think we did. I just think it was nice to have the option of the Wilson as a venue, because it was, at a time, it was the only venue in the Hagerstown area that did shows. So the Wilson was very, very important, and and now it's no longer an option. It's no longer there. So it kind of feels like an old friend that maybe you didn't talk to a lot, you didn't talk to enough, you didn't keep in touch with, but he was always there, or they were always there for you if you needed them. And, now suddenly they're not there anymore. So it's like, it's just sort of sad. It's the end of an era, because the Wilson Ruritan Center for the longest time was a bedrock, the bedrock of Hagerstown, Maryland area shows. And now it's gone. I just think that means a lot. And if you're listening out there and you know what I'm talking about, then I know it means a lot to you as well. So yeah, just know that the Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo 2023 was the last show to be held at the Wilson. So there's that. A little bit of a bummer. It's bittersweet because it was a great show. If you're going to have a last show there, this was the one to do, because it was a grand finale, so to speak, because it was tremendously successful. I'm very happy for that. So, yeah, there is that. So moving on, because, well, that's what we have to do in life sometimes, is move forward. And moving forward, I'm doing that right now. So, but before I go any further with the moving forward stuff, I want to give some huge shout-outs to my YouTube cohorts and buddies, Rob over at Rob's Vintage Video, Mikey at VHS Mikey's, and Gareth over at Video Tasties. Check them out. They have YouTube channels. Their links will be in the description. And they also have a Facebook presence, so check them out. Very nice guys, super nice guys, actually. They show me a lot of love. I really appreciate them. And hopefully I'll be joining them on their live streams. So we'll see how that works. Oh, excuse me. Whew. Man, my diaphragm is just revolting against me right now. So I don't know what's going on there. A lot of hiccups, a lot of weird stuff, a lot of air in the esophagus. But whatever. Yes, Rob's Vintage Video Mikey, and Video Tasties. Check them out. They're all very good people, excellent tape heads. It's fun to talk to them, and I look forward to joining them on their live streaming shows via Rob's Vintage Video. So check them out. It would be worth your time if you're into VHS tapes, and if you're listening to this, you probably are. So, check them out, most certainly. So Rob, Mikey, Gareth, I love all you guys. You're great. Keep up the good work, and I hope to talk to you guys via stream soon. And now, Gareth at Video Tasties is very interesting, because he's based out of the UK, so he gives the UK take on VHS. And if you're not familiar, there are two formats throughout the globe, and the UK uses the PAL format, which is I don't think it's something that gets represented enough on VHS channels. Not that there's a lot of them, but you know what I mean. You don't really hear about the PAL versions a lot over here in the States, or at least North America. We just sort of stick to our format because that's easier. I mean, it's not all encompassing, because if you were to include PAL versions and all the stuff you talked about, you would have very, very long shows, because PAL version VHS, it's like a completely different universe, a whole nother world of VHS across the pond. So it is the PAL versions of VHS, totally different thing. There's a lot, just so many different things about them. It's a whole new world. So it's nice to get a UK perspective on VHS. So yeah, definitely check Video Tasties out. It's just good stuff. For those of you listening that are into videotapes, or you're into VHS, or you're into just ancient home media in general, just know that there is a culture out there that appreciates the stuff as much as you do. So you're not alone as much as you think you might be. You're not. Just do some looking, do some digging, and subscribe to their channels. And by the way, subscribe to my channel. The Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo was not only going to be a gathering of unique vendors and tape heads, but also sort of a bit of a promotional vessel for my channel. And I see the numbers, and it didn't really work that well. So if you're listening to this and haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It's easy. All you got to do is hit that little button. It doesn't cost you anything. It says subscribe, but there's no subscription. I don't know why they call it that. So yeah, it's free. Just hit it. Come on, you make me happy, and in turn, I'll make you happy with my excellent content. The same goes for the Rob's with this video Mikey, and Video Tasties. Hit subscribe on their channels as well, and they will make you very happy. It's good, entertaining stuff, informative stuff. And that's what we're here to do on Earth, is to be entertained and to inform, and also do the same things ourselves. We like to inform, we like to entertain, and we like to be entertained and informed. So keep that in mind. Hit that subscribe button, and let's continue. Yes, the Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship VHS Expo 2023 was a huge success, and I will be having them again every spring. Of course, it'll be in a different venue, maybe in a different town. Maybe I can take this thing on tour. I don't know. Who knows? But definitely it's going to be a thing from now on. So, just keep your eyes and eels. Keep your eels peeled. Keep your eels peeled. You'll be seeing lots of promotion for the next VHS Expo. Because trust me, I like to really put it out there and wiggle it around and make sure you see it. So, but that's not it. I'm going to be doing other events too throughout the year. But I don't know if you've ever done events of any sort. It's hard to find a venue. It's just hard to contact people. It's hard for them to get back to you. It's hard to find a venue that meets your specs, and some venues don't want to deal with you because of what you're doing. So it's hard to find a venue. I'm trying to find a venue for the next great event from the VHS Pirate Ship coming down the pike. It is Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship Thunder Jam 2023. And now what that is it's not exactly the same thing the Expo was. This is going to be more wrestling and sports memorabilia based, maybe more wrestling based than sports in general, but going to be lots of wrestling VHS, lots of wrestling memorabilia and toys and stuff like that. So that's going to be a pretty good time. I'm just looking for a venue, and it depends on when whatever venue I get is available, when the date is, but I'm shooting for late July. It'll be a Sunday, so definitely keep your eels peeled for that. Yes, the expo was a very good time, had by all. The vendors did well. They were just as surprised as I was. And speaking of that, all the people that came up to me, and that they were perusing my inventory, they had all said pretty much the same thing, that they didn't know that other VHS collectors existed in this area. And I said, well, I thought the same thing. And so it's just nice to really fellowship and network with other VHS collectors, because, apparently there are a lot of us out there. So, it's nice to have that fellowship with other people who, have this passion for ancient media. And it's just nice to meet other people with the same interests. It always is. So I just found out that the culture's a lot stronger than I thought. So very pleasantly surprised. Yeah, us VHS collectors, man, we got to stick together. We got to talk to each other, hang out, and network, fellowship. It's all about the brethren, and it's just good stuff. It was a good time. I'm just elated at how well it went. If you didn't get a chance to go, I'm sorry. There's always next time, and there will be plenty more next times. So yeah, definitely, check it out. That's really, I can't really push it as much more as I did. So it's like, it was a good time. That's all I can really say. To sum it up, it was a great time. Now, the one mistake I made, I should say, is I made the foolish mistake of not paying attention to my footwear because, I was there all day. It was my event, so of course I was pretty busy doing other stuff. I got there really early to set everything up and all that. And for some reason, I just did not think enough, even though I really should have. I didn't think enough to wear proper footwear. Instead, I just wore these dead ass tennis shoes I have that don't even really have soles inside of them, and I just wore them, thinking that was going to be okay. But instead, they completely devoured my feet alive. The bottoms of my feet are covered with huge blisters. So a huge folly on my part for doing that. So now my feet hurt very badly, and they'll be healed though. But yeah, so next time definitely I will be wearing some better shoes. That was my fault. So yeah, that's the only drawback I have with that is like I'm in some pain right now. But with great things come great sacrifices, and that is what it is. Well, we got to take a station break right now, but when we come back, we'll be talking more about the VHS Expo, and Admiral Analog himself will be joining us on the phone to give his perspective on the VHS Expo. And by the way, speaking of that, to all my vendors that were there, I really appreciate you being a part of it. And I'm sorry I really didn't get a chance to talk to a lot of you as much as I would like. I was very busy, so I appreciate you guys showing up and handling stuff and just being there. It was great that you were a part of it. So anyways, Admiral Analog from Admiral Analog's Audio Assortment will be joining me on the phone on the other side of the station break. So keep it locked right here to WVHS FM 92.7. And when we come back, we'll be talking more about the VHS Expo and hearing from one of the main vendors, Admiral Analog. So keep it locked right here. I'll be right back.
Captain Adams Happy Hour.
On 92.7 WVHS FM. WVHS FM.
Joseph P. Brenner. What's a P stand?
Pussy.
Captain Adams Happy Hour.
92.7 WVHS FM. WVHS FM.
Captain Adams Happy Hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've got your radio dial locked precisely where it needs to be, right here on WVHS FM 92.7. And you're listening to Captain Adams Happy Hour. I am Captain Adam. Welcome back to the show. We are recapping the VHS Expo 2023 and all the things that transpired in that great event. And by the way, be sure to hit subscribe right here on Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship. I certainly would appreciate that. And speaking of that, the last segment I made a mistake and referred to VHS Mikey as Video Mikey. That is not correct. It is VHS Mikey. Hey, in this line of work, you say video and VHS an awful lot, so sometimes the wires get crossed. So sorry, Mikey. Yes, VHS Mikey. Check him out on YouTube and Facebook, as well as Rob's Vintage Video and Video Tasties. They're all good stuff, and they're certainly worth. They're worth checking out, that's for sure, and certainly worth a subscribe. So head on over there when you're done with this show and check them out. They would appreciate it. And and certainly hit subscribe right here on Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship. And also, by the way, it should be noted that WVHS FM has recently merged with Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship. So we are one in the same. If there's any confusion, you can call this show the WVHS FM, or you can call it Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship. It's Captain Adams Happy Hour either way, and either way, I'm happy to have you here. So the first ever and first annual VHS Expo was a complete success. Everything went very well. I was really surprised there were no problems whatsoever, and usually in any kind of thing show business oriented, there is something that always goes awry, and this time it didn't happen. The bands were awesome. They all went on time and didn't go over or early or anything like that. The schedule was on time, so I really appreciate them handling their stuff the way they could. So it was a great time, and yeah, the bands. Speaking of which, the show started with Junk Punk. It's Shane from SURFIN Comics, one of the supreme vendors of the VHS Expo. So he played triple duty. Like I said earlier, he was my comic book vendor and my retro game vendor, and he was also one of the music acts. So he did a very good job. So there's that. And of course, then was High Noon Kahuna. Certainly a splendid act, a great band. If you haven't checked them out yet, please do so. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they're on Bandcamp. They should be on your mind because they are a supreme band and certainly an awesome thing to check out live. And they did not disappoint at the VHS Expo. They had a special video that they arranged just for this show. They had two big flat screen TVs up, and they were playing this video they made just for their performance, and it was absolutely spectacular. But I'm told by them that video was a one-of-a-kind deal only for the VHS Expo. So if you missed it, you'll probably never see it again. So sorry to say, but that's what it is. And then, of course, the show all was wrapped up by Atsume, just a spectacular band, a brilliant band. They sounded fantastic. If you haven't seen them, you really should check them out. They are black metal, so if you're not into black metal, you probably won't like them because they are very black metal, very very orthodox black metal, I should say. They wear the makeup, they do the whole thing, man. They are serious about it, and they put on quite a performance, and they sound spectacular. Again, they're the same. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they're on Bandcamp, and once again, they should be on your mind. Lots of good stuff out there from these bands, so definitely check them out. Just because you didn't go to the expo does not mean you can't check out these bands. There's plenty of opportunities out there. So get out there, check out Junk Punk, check out High Noon Kahuna, and definitely check out Atsume. Now, Atsume is spelled Athame, pronounced Atsume. So that's, a little clarification there. And then, of course, there were the awesome vendors that participated in the VHS Expo 2023. There was Video Den. He was just a great guy, real nice guy. He had a supreme selection. There was Crucial Blast Records. There was SURFIN Comics, like I had mentioned. They also had retro games. There was There was La Lune Metaphysical Shop, which had, all kinds of magical items. JC, she was very cool. She's very nice. So shout out to JC. Go check them out. They have an online presence, but they have a good old-fashioned brick-and-mortar store right in Hagerstown, Maryland. So, be sure to check them out. And, of course, one of the more unique vendors was Grim Liberation Studio. If you're not familiar, he's a guy who, makes these handmade horror props and masks. Just really excellent craftsmanship. They look supreme. You can't find this stuff in any Spirit Halloween store. It's just dynamite stuff. It's like, it's perfect for, if you're doing any kind of haunted attraction, if you're doing like a Halloween party, or you just want a really cool Halloween costume, if you're doing any kind of horror cosplay, or you just want some, everyday ghoulish fun. And who doesn't want that? Yes, Grim Liberation Studio, handmade wares that scare, made with care. Yes, check him out. He's on Facebook and on Instagram, so definitely check out Grim Liberation Studios. Another unique vendor I had was, well, they were all unique, but I had Weird and Wonderful Things, they vendor of vintage horror and science fiction magazines, and a little bit of everything nostalgia oriented. He was a really nice guy too. Has a shop in Bunker Hill Antiques in Spring Mills, West Virginia, I believe. The link will be in the description of this video, so all the vendors will be represented there if you wanted to check them out. But yeah, I mean, he had like old Fangoria magazines and just stuff that you just don't see all the time, and stuff that maybe you've forgotten about, and it was just like a trip down memory lane. So it was really awesome. I'm glad he was able to take part in this just supreme event. And of course, then there was Game Face Records. He was slinging mainly Laserdisc. He was my Laserdisc guy. He had a ton of Laserdisc, more Laserdisc than I even thought existed. So he was a real nice guy too. But definitely check him out because he does more than just Laserdisc. He the name says, he does records as well, but he also does a lot of video game stuff, a lot of arcade cabinet mods and Xbox mods, and just a lot of really interesting stuff. He also sells a lot of turntables and DJ equipment and just a little bit of everything on the the Tektronic side of things, and he's definitely worth checking out. And then it has to be said, we did have food. We had a pop-up food stand. Salsa Mama on the Go was there serving supreme Mexican cuisine. And when I say supreme, I'm not overselling that. In fact, I might be underselling it a little bit because really it was so good, I didn't really know what to call it. It was worth poetry. It was so good. So I'm really glad she was a part of it because she made it delicious is what she did. And I'm told that I think around 4:00 she was out of food. She sold everything she had because it was so good. So that was a big hit, and that's something you always want with any kind of like food pop-up stand or food truck. It's going well when you're out of supplies because you've sold everything you have, and that is, of course, the goal when they cater to any sort of event. So yes, if you're in the area, the Hagerstown area, and you see an event where she is setting up shop, go to it, if not just for that, because it is well worth it. And then, of course, I had the vendor in which I'm getting ready to talk to on the phone. Admiral Analog Audio Assortment was there slinging vinyl like nobody's business except his because, well, that is his business. He's just an excellent record dealer. He can find anything, and he has tons of stuff in his selection. If he can't find it, you don't need it. That's just basically what it is. So he was there, and on the phone right now, joining us is Andrew, sole proprietor of Admiral Analog's Audio Assortment in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. So yes, let's say hello to him. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey Adam, thank you for inviting me aboard your VHS pirate ship. I hope I prove to be a good interviewee and am not made to walk the plank.
Oh, shucks. Well, we're not that kind of pirate ship, so you don't have to worry about that, Andrew. Well, I thank you for coming on the show today. You, like many of the vendors, I didn't really get a chance to really talk to and see how things were going. I mean, I was able to sort of briefly, walk around and just check on everybody to make sure everybody was okay and doing well and all that. But I really didn't have a chance to really chat and observe how things were going for them. So, I apologize for that, but I was just pretty busy. So I would have loved to talk to you there at length, but I really didn't have too much of a chance. So let me ask you this. What was your take on, what was your takeaway from the first annual VHS Expo?
My takeaway from Captain Adam's VHS Expo is a little bit bittersweet because, as many people know, that was the last event ever to be held at the Wilson Ruritan. And there's been a lot of shows there over the years, going back to the 90s, perhaps even earlier. A lot of events held there, and a lot of memories connected to it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of sad to let that go. But on the other hand, I think people had a really good time at the expo, both vendors and attendees. It was very well attended. There was a lot of people there. People seemed to be having a good time. It was really cool to see people dressed up and getting into character.
That's right.
Like Halloween outside of Halloween. I think it's always cool to see adults cut loose like that, kind of relax and feel free to be themselves, dress up, whatever they want to do. because you don't get many chances to do that in normal everyday life.
Yeah, boy, is that true.
And also, I thought it was very generous of you, Adam, to set this all up. It's a lot of work. If someone has not set up an event like this before, they just would not realize the amount of preparation that goes into it. And even after you have it all planned, there's a massive promotion that you have to do. You gotta hit the promotion hard just to get people to come out, and of course the expenses up front. So I really appreciate you doing that. It was very generous of you. You helped everyone, all the vendors there, make money and created a good experience for the attendees as well.
Yeah, well, thanks, man.
And yeah, those are my main takeaways from the expo.
Well, I really appreciate the kind words there, Andrew. That was very nice of you. I'm glad you had a good experience. It seemed like everybody did, like you had said, and also like you had said, there were people in costumes there, which I thought was very delightful. That's the perfect word for it, and you described it very well as saying that it's an opportunity for them to cut loose, and I'm glad they felt they could do that. So they really added to the spirit of the event. It was just a good time. It was just a very pleasant time, and I'm glad you were a part of it. And yes, what you said about there is a lot of work into planning these sort of events. There really is. Yeah, just let you know, anybody out there who's planning on doing some kind of event like this, or really any kind of event, be prepared to put a lot of work into it, because there is a lot of preparation, there is a lot of promotion, and anymore it's like good luck finding a venue. I don't know what it's like around our listeners' part of the woods, but in this part of the woods, it's it's really hard to find a venue. And speaking of that, you had brought up the Wilson. I already missed them because I'm trying to book stuff for the summer and for the fall, and nobody is getting back with me. The Wilson was not only just a nice place to have a show, they also got back to you. They also returned your calls if they didn't answer the phone right away. They would get back to you pretty quickly, and you would have the date within that day. So, they did things very efficiently. So I missed them already, and booking these next events is going to be sort of difficult. So I'll keep everybody out there posted. Believe me, as soon as I get the dates and a venue, everybody out there will be the first to know. It is very difficult. And I talked to everybody earlier about the Wilson closing, and I mean, you're right. It's just, the place is almost made of memories for anybody that digs the underground music scene in this area. A lot of shows there, man. I mean, even before our time, there were shows there, and it's just. It's bittersweet. The expo was bittersweet. It really was. You're right about that, because it is sad to see it go, but it's the end of an era, and it's just how it is. It's how it's got to be. Now, going into this thing with the organizing of it and promoting of it, and just the whole planning thing, there was always this underlying feeling, maybe I don't know, just this unsure feeling that I didn't know how well it was going to do, because I had no idea what the temperature was for people around here, if there was a culture for a VHS in any kind of ancient media, because I mean, there are other places. I mean, you see other pages and channels that do VHS stuff, and they seem like they have a lot of fans. So, like around the country and around the world, there certainly is, a following like for VHS and any kind of like, VHS comic books, vinyl, there's a following. But I was always very unsure about this area to see that, how well it did. And from my take, it was a pretty good barometer of that culture, and that is it is pretty hefty around here, surprisingly so. What did you really gauge from the temperature of the crowd? I mean, did you think they were really interested in it? I mean, what did you think the crowd thought?
I thought the crowd was pretty receptive to Captain Adam's VHS Expo. I mean, I guess they wouldn't have really been there in the first place if they weren't receptive. But I feel like, even the people who came out who were just curious, there was certainly something for them as well, something to keep them interested, something for them to check out. I've noticed you've gotten a lot of feedback about people who are sorry they missed it and regret that and plan to come to the next one you're doing in the future. So it seems like people are ready and willing and want to travel a distance to go to these kinds of events, and I think that's really cool. I think that's a very good sign. I think, and along the same lines, I believe people enjoyed the atmosphere and the selection. There was a pretty wide variety of things. You know, the core was VHS, but you stretched it all the way out with your vendors to metaphysical stuff and books and comic books, video games. And there's pretty much something for anyone who's into this kind of underground culture.
Yeah, that's what I really gathered too. And my take on the temperature of the crowd was very good. They were very receptive to it. They seemed like they were excited to be there, because I don't know if you noticed, you probably did, but I noticed that their eyes would light up upon seeing all the stuff that the vendors had. And I just think it was a very wide array of just interesting relics and just a lot of cool stuff was there. And it's just really neat to see all that cool stuff in one place. So I was really happy that it turned out the way it did. And maybe my expectations were just too low on it, because it really turned out very, very well. Speaking of the vendors' wares, did you ever get a chance to walk around and see everybody's stuff, get a close look at what they were selling?
During some breaks in the action at the VHS Expo, I was able to walk around a little from my table and check out the other vendors' wares. I was pretty impressed by many of them. I counted at least 3, probably even 4 VHS vendors, and then a lot of people that were selling VHS. They had other things to offer as well. I also noticed the Crucial Blast vendor, and he had a pretty impressive stock of collectible horror novels. People listening may or may not realize how valuable some of those are, so that was pretty impressive. And I believe he was the only person selling books proper, other than comic books, I mean. And I liked seeing some of the older games, video games that I remember. I believe it was Junk Punk. They had a pretty nice cassette tape collection, which I picked up a few of. And I know, sorry I don't remember the name, but I know there was another vendor who had horror movie memorabilia, like masks and props and such, so that was impressive.
Yeah, that was Donnie with the Grim Liberation Studios. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like the vendor selection really, the wares that everyone had to offer really covered everything. I was pretty happy with it. I wouldn't really see how anyone attending could be disappointed by that.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. It was just an incredible gathering of just really, really cool stuff, like I said. And, unfortunately, I didn't really get much of a chance to really closely check out their goods. But, I did get a glimpse here and there as I would walk around the place. And, yeah, it was just some really good stuff. If I was an attendee there, I would be leaving with pretty much no money. I mean, it was, I build this as the event beyond your imagination, and it really was the event beyond your imagination, but also the event beyond your bank account, because, I mean, it was just tons of stuff there that I would want to buy myself. So, I can't imagine what the attendees thought of everything. It must have been pretty overwhelming, really. Yeah, the Crucial Blast vendor, he had the books, like you said. They were incredible, and they were in excellent condition for these rather old novellas, and most of them were novelizations of horror movies. Like he had Friday the 13th Part 3 the novelization in basically perfect condition, and that goes for a ton of money. Just like most of that stuff, these first edition novelizations of horror movies, they're just outrage. They just go for outrageous prices, and that's just what it is. That's an incredible market for that stuff. So I'm glad he brought that stuff. I don't know if he sold any. I really hope he did. So I'll have to talk to him sometime and ask him that question. Now, something I didn't really realize when I was booking this event, and I got the date April 23rd. I didn't really take into account that Record Store Day was the day before. So as a record store owner operator, I mean, Record Store Day is tremendous. And, I just, if I could go back and do things a little bit differently, I might have maybe booked it on a different weekend, one that wasn't so monolithic for you as a record dealer, because I know it had to be pretty hard on you to do two big days in a row. I mean, I'm sure you had a huge day at your store, but then to pack up a bunch of stuff and then haul it out to the Wilson Raritan for the VHS Expo. I mean, that really had to be, quite a task. And so, yeah, well, what do you think? Record Store Day. Did you think it helped or it hurt the VHS Expo? Meaning that, do you think that maybe people were burnt out on going out to buy stuff, or were they invigorated by Record Store Day and were really in the mood to buy stuff? Well, what do you think about that?
Record Store Day was held the day before the expo, Saturday, April 22nd. Did it help or hurt attendance at the expo? I hate to give a neither wishy-washy kind of answer, but here I go anyway. I just think, for my store, I can only speak for my store. As far as I can tell, it's a totally different crowd, really. As listeners probably know, the big Record Store Day release this year was Taylor Swift. So, there was 40 people out front of my store waiting to buy just that record, really.
What? Jeez.
Whereas, at Captain Adams VHS Expo, it's a totally different crowd. No one stocking Taylor Swift there. No one trying to buy Taylor Swift there. If it hurt anyone or burnt out anybody, that was me. Just from being tired the day before the expo from Record Store Day. It's, for a little context, it's the busiest day of the year. Just that one random day in April makes the entire month of April bigger than December for me. So I think that says a lot.
It's like the WrestleMania for record stores.
Yeah, it's possible that it helped attendance. People still riled up and ready to go from the day before. Having something to do the next day was probably nice for them.
Yeah, I'd like to think of it as being like an action-packed weekend. You just make a weekend out of it. You go out shopping for records, and then you'd go the next day shopping for whatever. I just think it was, I think it was a nice tie-in to both things, and it was what it was. And to your point about different crowds at your record store and at the expo, I think that has a lot to do with it too, because clearly it is. Nobody was there looking for the new Taylor Swift record, and of course nobody there. None of the vendors stocked it, but instead we had Taylor Swift herself was there at the expo. That's right, she was there, and she had a pretty good time. No, that's not true. But yes, so yeah. Speaking of that, that's something I find very bizarre. That Taylor Swift, for some reason, being synonymous with Record Store Day, that was like the biggest release. And I've seen your post about it. I think it's hilarious about come see me on Taylor Swift Record Store Day, and that's pretty true because she got a lot of press. Excuse the pun. She got a lot of press about that. So yeah, that's an odd thing to me. I never would have thought that records and Taylor Swift would really go together. Like, why do you think she's synonymous with Record Store Day, and why is a Taylor Swift record so appealing? And, matter of factly, what is so appealing about her? Because I just don't get it.
Okay, the Taylor Swift question. Why do I think Taylor Swift is so synonymous with Record Store Day, and why is it even a big deal to get her music on vinyl? Well, let's see. I know on social media and in person and so on, I make a lot of jokes about Taylor Swift, but seriously joking, maybe, kind of, perhaps.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's serious or not serious. I have fun with it. If you want me to be totally earnest and sincere for a moment, I do think Taylor Swift is a good role model for little girls. I like that Taylor Swift does not use sex to sell her music. I think that speaks a lot. It's a good example to set. She's popular beyond a level that any of us can really fathom.
No, it's insane. She's absolutely huge.
Yeah, it's like she's obviously a household name. Everyone knows who she is, so the demand is just outrageous for her stuff. I believe the record that came out for Record Store Day this past Saturday, April 22nd, I believe the figure was that there were 115,000 of them made worldwide. So 115,000 is a lot of records, but for someone with Taylor Swift's fan base, that's nothing. That's a pittance, a drop in the bucket. So 115,000 really is limited contextually in her example.
Yeah, I mean, comparably so and relatively so. That's not a lot. They obviously knew what they were doing, because all of those are going to sell. They're not going to have any of those left over. So, good for them for that kind of marketing. Second part of the question, we might as well ask again, why do you think it's such a big deal to have Taylor Swift, of all people, on vinyl?
I don't know. The same reason that everything else on vinyl is a big deal nowadays. Just because it's there, It's something to collect for her fans. It's a keepsake and something nice and sizable and weighty to show off. The same reason people want other records by other bands, just something fun to collect. Humans love collecting things. That's what we do. Collect pretty much anything. Taylor Swift, fun to joke about, but selling her records pays my bills.
Well, yeah, that's what it comes down to, and you have the fairly unique perspective of being a music fan, not necessarily of her music, but a music fan, and also of a merchant who relies on his inventory being sold. So that's what it comes down to, and it really doesn't matter what it is as long as it sells. It could be somebody farting onto a snare drum for an hour. As long as it sells, that's all the better. Well, I'm glad Record Store Day went very well for you, and I'm glad you did well at the Expo. It does seem like it was a very exhausting weekend, but it also seems like it was a little bit, at least it was sort of worth it. So I'm glad things were successful for you. And it is interesting that stuff like Record Store Day exists, because it shows that people do have a need for tangible media, physical media, something to hold, as opposed to just like the digital stuff that's out there nowadays. Because really you could get anything on your phone, but just having a record or a VHS, anything like that, it's just something entirely different. And it does seem to be a need for people to have this stuff, and I think that's a pretty good thing. And what I've always found fascinating about records is that you always see these cliche taglines for articles, or people always refer to it as this way. They always say that the same cheesy thing, oh, vinyl records making a comeback. When the truth is, they never went away. They were always there. It's like LL Cool J once said, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. And that's exactly what I think the perspective on vinyl is, because they've always been there. Even through the 90s, when CDs were really, really getting big, vinyl was always there. Like pretty much every artist, every band that was ever released on any kind of label had a vinyl option. So vinyl never went away. It was us who sort of changed the path and assumed that vinyl wasn't there because a lot of people just weren't buying them, but they always existed. So what is your take on that?
Records, vinyl, LPs, albums, whatever you want to call it, even wax cylinders, they've always been a thing. Yes, correct. I did a quick search, and I can confirm that the first turntable, aka phonograph, was invented in 1877 by Thomas Edison. So yeah, by the time records reached their sales peak in the late 70s, 100 years later, they were fully and firmly established. And maybe that has something to do with their longevity, their popularity, their resurgence. But another thing about humans, other than liking to collect things, humans also like something new, something novel, something different, something upgraded. So, come 1980, 1981, CDs came on the market. And they really didn't overtake vinyl until the 90s, early 90s. So CDs took a while to catch on too, but, it was new technology, and you didn't have the pops and cracks that listening to vinyl you would experience. So it was a much cleaner sound. But, records, like we just talked about, are so ingrained in society. They've been around forever, 150 years now. So you're not getting rid of them. They're gonna wax and wane in popularity, but for something to be around that long and not go away, I mean, that really speaks volumes. That's staying power. So I would say more so than people turning their backs on vinyl or losing interest, I would say the music industry themselves, the record labels themselves, they tried to kill it off. They tried very hard. Right at the turn of the decade, 1990, they did everything they could to force record stores into not stocking vinyl anymore. Major labels, major corporations removed it even as an option to offer bands. As a band in the early 90s, you would really have to press in your contract. You would really have to insist on getting vinyl made for your new album. So, you couple that mass movement with trying to kill it off, along with consumers' interest in trying new things, and that almost led to the death of vinyl. What I've read is that 2005 was actually the lowest point. There was like a 250,000 records made, period, from everybody, all bands and all artists in that year total.
Wow, that is nothing.
And then since 2005, every year it's grown. So it's nice to see. I think a lot of people have been waiting around, wondering when the vinyl bubble's going to burst and, they can go back to getting all the records they want for real cheap from thrift stores and all that. I think those days are gone, personally.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I've talked about this in previous episodes where people are very much aware of what they have now, and the same is most certainly true for VHS. You can't just walk into a thrift store anymore and find really good VHS. You might get lucky, but before, the odds were certainly in your favor because people just had no idea. They just wanted to get rid of them. And of course, records, I would say that's even more so. So, yeah, there's that.
Yeah, but we'll see. I think there's always going to be a market for vinyl. People are always going to be interested in it. Maybe not as much as now. Maybe it'll plateau. Maybe it'll even grow a little more before it plateaus. But I don't see any kind of crash coming. It's a niche market, and if that's the way it stays, good. That's fine. But it'll always be around in some form or other. I feel pretty confident. That is the physical medium now. If people don't want music just on their phones, then that's what you do. You listen to a record when you're at home. It's a totally different experience than listening on your phone. And people recognize that and appreciate it and value it. Not to mention, music on your phone is ephemeral and disposable, and you can't touch it or hold it. And the tactile experience of a record is a big deal for humans. We enjoy colors and artwork and hefty objects. Records are big, so kind of rambling here on and on.
No, I mean it's a topic worth rambling about.
But yeah, that's my opinion on records.
Records, I mean, they're just very visceral things. The experience of a record there's a lot of moving parts there. Of course, you have the music itself, but then you have like the artwork on the sleeve, and most of the sleeves you can open up, and then there's like more artwork on the inside, and like little stories about the band or the songs, or some of them have the lyrics to the songs, and it's just like an all-encompassing experience to listen to a record as opposed to just having it downloaded on your phone. And the people that say like, oh, why would I want the vinyl? I have it on my phone. They just don't get it, and they're never going to get it. It's the same people that say, why would I want the VHS of that or the DVD? I can stream it on my phone or on my TV. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's just not the same. And the people that are like that just, they're just not going to get it. And, I don't know. It's sort of like not worth explaining it to them because, well, they're just never going to understand. Well, I'm really digging this conversation, but we are running out of time here. So, Andrew, why don't you tell everybody out there a little bit about your store, Admiral Analog's Audio Assortment?
It is located at 141 West German Street in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. As far as online presence goes, we use mostly Instagram and Facebook. There's no traditional website, but there's pretty steady updates put on both of our social medias. And our normal operating hours are 11 to 6 daily. And if we have to close early or close a day, I always post that on social media.
And I have been in your store quite a few times. It's a really nice store. Not to mention that Shepherdstown is a nice little town. Definitely worth checking out. And to all the listeners out there, like I said earlier, all the information on not just Andrew, but all the vendors are going to be in the description. So definitely check them out. I'm going to put his social links up there so you can check them out. Well, I certainly had a great time talking to you today. It was nice getting your perspective on not only your expo experience, but also your record store day experience, records in general, and oddly enough, Taylor Swift. And harken back to that, the reason why I just find it so odd that Taylor Swift vinyl is such a big thing is because, well, it's just I don't really think of her when I think of vinyl records. But that brings me back to my point of how vinyl records have always been a thing. And there's plenty of bands and artists that are on vinyl that you just wouldn't think they were. So that's it's just very interesting. Vinyl is an incredible world. It's certainly worth getting into. So yes, well, Andrew, thanks a lot for coming on the show, and I certainly hope to talk to you again soon.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Captain Adam. This was fun. I enjoyed it, and I'll look forward to seeing you again at your next VHS Expo around Halloween.
Andrew of Admiral Analog's Audio Assortments, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to him for coming on the show. It was great talking to him. He was one of the many excellent vendors at the VHS Expo 2023. His information will be in the description, as well as all of the most excellent vendors. They'll be in the description, so check them out. Shout out to Video Den, Matt Burns, Game Face Records, Laloon Metaphysical Shop, Salsa Mama on the Go. Let's see who else. Grim Liberation Studios, Crucial Blast Records, Surfing Cow Comics, and of course the bands, Junk Punk, Atame, and High New Kahuna. Shout out to all of them for being part of the first annual VHS Expo. I love all of you guys. And so yeah, all the listeners out there, all the information will be in the description. So please check them out. They are well worth it. And they are great people as well as great merchants, and they have lots of really, really cool stuff. So certainly check them out. Well, we really got to go. We are pressing for time here. So I appreciate all of you out there listening. A big thank you to Andrew for coming on the show. And so just be sure to keep it locked right here to WVHS FM 92.7 for Captain Adams Happy Hour. That's it for today, mateys. Thanks a lot for stopping in, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Captain Adams Happy Hour.
On 92.7 WVHS FM. WVHS FM.
92.7. 92.7. 92.7.
92.7. 92.7. WVHS FM. 92.7. 92.7 WVHS FM. Radio for the discerning VHS collector. WVHS FM.